Because you develop an internal life, like real detachment or complete or absolute, let's use the word absolute, which means there's no chance of becoming attached, arises when one actually develops their internal life. Not just gets happiness from chanting, but comes to a higher stage of devotional service, which is called Raganuga Bhakti. We're not proposing that for anyone. But when you come to a higher stage of devotional service, by preaching, by sharing Krishna consciousness, and of course also by being strict in your own sadhana, then you actually you enter into Krishna's pastimes. And it's real. Just like you hear stories about Srinivas Acharya. Srinivas Acharya used to go into trance. There's one interesting story. I was telling this the other day in Sydney. That sometimes he'd go into trance for several days with his internal life. And his wife, he was married, his wife was very worried because her husband's sitting there for several days without eating or drinking. And she said, what's the problem? And she didn't want to shake him and say, Prabhu, wake up! You know, because you definitely don't want to do that when a devotee's in meditation. Of course, there's a funny story. There was a Mayavadi who was supposedly in Samadhi, but he had died. And Prabhupada said his disciples were saying, Gurudev's in Samadhi, he's absorbed in transcendental trance. And then Prabhupada said when the body began to smell, they understood he had already died. So, but a devotee's trance is different. So this great devotee, Srinivas Acharya, who was meditating, and he was entering into Krishna's pastime. Actually, what he was doing in this pastime was looking for like a anklet or a ring that Radharani had lost when she was in the Yamuna River. So what happened is his wife called for one of his disciples named Ramchandra Kaviraj. He came and he sat down next to his guru, and he entered into the same meditation. So it's real. And together they were able to find what Radharani had lost. And then after they found that, they both came back to external consciousness at the same time and embraced each other and cried in ecstasy. So it's real. And sometimes Srinivas Acharya would go into meditation on Krishna's pastimes, and he would come out and he would be bringing back a garland from the spiritual world. Pretty good, isn't it? I mean, so it's a real life that pure devotees have, and that's a coming attraction for us. I'm not saying that prematurely, you know, oh, think of myself as a gopi or as a cow, moo. It doesn't work like that. But it becomes revealed to one as one engages in the preaching mission of Srila Prabhupada's movement. I mean, it's absolutely sure it will happen if you don't commit offenses, you engage in the preaching movement, Prabhupada's movement. And then you become so detached that you can act like Ramananda Roy was doing. I'm not saying that we should imitate. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said no one should imitate. But Ramananda Roy was personally teaching the Devi Dasis, that means young girls, how to dance, you know, bathing them and everything like that. He was a man, externally. And he wasn't feeling any disturbance because he identified himself in terms of his spiritual identity. I mean, that's a big thing. Of course, right now we can identify ourselves as servants of our spiritual master, servants of Srila Prabhupada. And that really keeps us fixed. Because when we identify ourselves like that, then sense gratification, even if we have the tendency, we will just tolerate. Vacho Vegam, Manasakurta Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udu Pashta Vegam. We just tolerate the pushings. But when you're on a higher platform, you don't have to even worry about tolerating because you're identifying yourself with your actual spiritual identity. Anyway, so that's real detachment, and as Srila Prabhupada said, a pure devotee is not tempted or attracted and does not fall down from his exalted transcendental position. But that only occurs when one's an absolutely pure devotee. Even if you're on the stage of Baba, like Bharat Maharaj, you can fall down. Because if you're not attentive, right now we must be very attentive. We must always be thinking of ourselves as servants of our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada, and of Srila Prabhupada's movement, and just avoid any sort of sense gratification, then we can make spiritual advancement. Avoid bad association. Bad association is one of the worst things. Okay, so these are some of the points I wanted to make. So any questions or comments about these points?